A new raid means a new damage comparison video. Last Wish has many opportunities for damage, but who will reign supreme? If you said Whisper of the Worm, you're mostly right. Let's get to it. Damage testing was primarily done on Kalli, with some other tests performed on Morgeth and Riven. All tests were done at 590 plus power and performed without any sort of damage buffs or debuffs, but I did utilize auto reload effects like Barricade and Lunafaction boots. The first test performed was actually more of a baseline to what we'll be comparing everything else to, and that is Whisper of the Worm with Whispered Breathing. As I'm sure you've noticed, boxed breathing on Whisper of the Worm was changed to Whispered Breathing, and the weapon is just as good as it was before Forsaken launch with Whispered Breathing procced. This baseline test is essentially to see how much damage we could do to Kalli in between the hiding in the doors phases. Normally I would not drop a rally barricade here, but with White Nail being the way that it is right now, it is a safety precaution. In this particular example, I was able to land 13 shots on Kalli, and that is definitely not the maximum possible for this encounter. It's pretty conservative shooting, but it'll work for a baseline. We end up at just over 1.3 million damage, which would mean we're capable of around 4 million damage at this conservative rate over the course of a damage cycle. If everyone is shooting this well, this is well beyond what you would need for one cycle, assuming that you're using other buffs. The only other real contenders for the damage crown are Sleeper Simulant, 1000 Voices, and maybe Borealis, which we test later in the video. The Ikelos shotgun was not tested for the purposes of this video, mainly because it's a legendary weapon in the energy slot, and you can basically use it in tandem with any of the power exotics mentioned in this video. We do end up testing Cold Heart for fun as well, so let's take a look at that real quick. While Cold Heart did receive a nice damage buff, it is sadly, but not unexpectedly, not capable of beating out well-placed Whisper shots. I was able to just barely match one cycle of Whisper damage with 2 cycles of Cold Heart. A fun option, sure. A viable option for those with weak weapons, maybe. But the best? No. 1000 Voices, the raid exotic, is up next. With 1000 Voices, you get 7 shots to fire, with each shot dealing, at least to Kalli, around 80,000 damage, which sounds impressive, until you realize how long it takes to actually fire the weapon. You need to really land all of the pre-fire explosives from this shot to make 1000 Voices work. But some simple calculations will show us that on Kalli, 80,000 times 7 does not equal 1.3 million and may actually be equal to Cold Heart in terms of damage output per one cycle. Which brings us to Sleeper with the Catalyst. I am 600 power in this clip, blasting Kalli for just under 130,000 damage a shot, and I can hit her for 12 shots safely before I need to enter a door. If everything was a crit, we'd be looking at about 1.56 million damage. That technically does beat out our conservative Whisper shooting, but would still end up losing out to more aggressive shooting from a Whisper user. This also has the Catalyst, which is harder to obtain since it only drops from the Spire of Stars raid. Not to mention that, despite Sleeper being able to keep up with Whisper, that is only while it has ammo. Whisper has the luxury of potentially never losing any ammo at all, ever. So while Sleeper does have potential, especially with buff stacking allowing you to hit shots of 300,000 or more, the rate at which you can pump out similar damage with Whisper means that Sleeper will take a back seat. However, not all hope is lost. I would suggest Sleeper to players who are not as good with a sniper. Kalli's head is pretty darn small, and if you're not able to fire Whisper at its maximum rate of fire, Sleeper's natural rate of fire gives you more time to line up shots, potentially letting you deal more damage. Again, until you run out of ammo. Other bosses like Morgeth and Riven have much larger crit spots, so hitting Whisper shots is not going to be as difficult on those bosses. Speaking of other bosses, let's talk about them. Shuro could use its own damage testing, sure, But due to the nature of the encounter, basically any top tier weapon will do the job. Damage phases last mere seconds as long as you have some form of a damage buff or debuff. Ikelos shotgun, whisper, sleeper, 1k voices, any of the above will work. Hell, we took her down with bows and a melting point. If bows can work, then any other strong non-primary style weapon will likely work. Morgeth is where we can maybe make things a little more interesting thanks to Borealis, the previously PS4 only weapon, and the Ikelos shotgun. When you break a shield with Borealis, the weapon gets double damage until you reload, and this effect persists until that very reload. There are many eyes of Riven with shields to be broken, letting your entire team get this buff. And without any other buffs, the damage looks pretty promising. However, Whisper of the Worm has the same rate of fire, and during a no buff test, we had to actually stop damage so that we wouldn't accidentally kill Morgeth. If that's not proof enough of how good Whisper of the Worm is, I don't know what is.
Thank God they're
I was shooting back and I wasn't getting anything.
So this was no buffs, and we almost killed him. And the only reason we didn't is because I told us to stop.
Yeah.
The Ikelos shotgun strat for Morgeth, where you all huddle up right next to Morgeth to deal damage, is also very viable and is technically faster as a result of being able to chain things like melting point more easily and just from the sheer burst of the shotgun with trench barrel. But it does have a slightly higher rate of failure compared to sniping in the back due to misplaced rifts or if you don't deal enough damage fast enough. So for the majority of groups, it's going to be much safer to snipe. We will revisit this strategy at a later date, but Ikelos shotgun is absolutely viable for Morgeth DPS. The Vault does not require any sort of weapon in particular, since it's not a boss, and while Riven has some interesting strategies that won't be discussed here, there's a reason why Whisper continues to be utilized. Let's look at Riven real quick, one place where 1,000 voices happens to keep things a little interesting. One shot of 1,000 voices is 178,155 damage at 600 power. You can get in 4 shots before the mouth closes, resulting in just over 700,000 damage. One whisper shot gives us 63,626 damage with whispered breathing. You can comfortably get in 9 shots, 12 if you time it right. 63,626 damage times 12 shots is 763,512 damage. That is 50,000 more damage than 1,000 voices. And you get to keep all of your ammo with Whisper of the Worm, whereas with 1,000 voices, you're out 4 shots. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, Whisper of the Worm is here to stay. It might not be the best in every single situation known in the game, but chances are it's the best for the overwhelming majority of them. And sure, there is always going to be a best weapon in the game. If it's not Whisper, it'll be something else. But Whisper is going to be the best thing until the new best thing shows up. And I seriously wonder what weapon would have to show up to topple Whisper, an ultra high impact sniper that doesn't even use any ammo as long as you're accurate. Next up, I wanted to test out some supers, especially some of the new ones, Blade Barrage, Chaos Reach, and I also wanted to see how old favorites like Celestial Nighthawk and Raiden Strider were holding up. Let's look at Blade Barrage first. It actually ends up doing less damage than you might be anticipating, as the blades scatter a lot more than you think they do. Our damage ranged from as low as 70,000 on one super to as high as 190,000. For an instant cast super, this is okay, especially if you're moving into position or doing something where you normally wouldn't be dealing damage. But Celestial Nighthawk absolutely obliterates this with a shot for well over 400,000 damage. Arcstaff was next up to bat, also able to hit around 400,000 damage over the course of the entire super, and that's with Raiden Flux. Chaos Reach hit around 230,000 damage over the course of its super, which lasts a couple of seconds. Not bad. Finally, Top Tree Hammers don't do as spectacular this time around compared to Eater of Worlds, floating just above 200,000 damage for a full set of hammers from far away. What all of this means is Celestial Nighthawk is still amazing, Chaos Reach is okay, Blade Barrage is okay since it's instant along with any other instant cast supers, and everything else doesn't really need to be worried about. A quick note on Riven's Curse and Transcendent Blessing. Riven's Curse is a mod that comes pre-modded into Dreaming City gear, giving you bonus damage in the Dreaming City, but you also take extra damage, and Blessing gets rid of the extra damage taken part of the mod. Riven's Curse is a 5% damage bonus, which is additive, not multiplicative, so 5 mods will be a 25% damage boost. Transcendent Blessing is also 5% additive. As for Weapons of Light and Tractor Cannon, there is indeed a place for both of these in high-end raid content. In 3-man endgame style content like the Shattered Throne or high score Nightfalls, the value of Weapons of Light does not outweigh the DPS that the sacrificed player could provide, unless that player happens to be really bad, like awful, and the only way you can make it up is to have them do buffs. The same goes for Tractor Cannon for the most part, in a perfect world where everyone is dealing ideal optimal damage. In 6-man content, well, that's where you can see potential value out of Weapons of Light and Tractor Cannon. Let's say everyone is using Whisper, dealing 100,000 damage a shot. That's 600,000 total damage per shot for the entire team. Take one person out, it's now 500,000, but increase those other 5 players by 25 or 33%, and now that damage is 625,000 with Weapons of Light, or 665,000 with Tractor Cannon. That is a net gain. A small one, but it is still a gain. But if the other players are missing their shots, have to reload, or do anything that would otherwise reduce their damage output in any way, the value gained starts to drop. There is no exact way to calculate this, as it varies on every single encounter with every single shot. As of the making of this video, White Nail on Whisper is still a little buggy, not proccing every single time, so at the moment, I would say you don't really need Tractor Cannon or Weapons of Light. But when White Nail is working flawlessly, that's when you can experiment with it. As for which one you should actually use, Weapons or Tractor, it depends on the fight and the skill of your team. The positive of Weapons of Light is that when the super is over, that player can go back to using a heavy weapon and join the team again in damage. The negative is that Weapons of Light is just less powerful than Tractor Cannon, and Weapons of Light doesn't last forever. Tractor's benefit is that it's stronger in effect and can last indefinitely as long as it is reapplied. But the person using Tractor Cannon can't contribute in damage themselves nearly as much. As for which is actually better, it's very much situational and varies depending on the skill of your team and the encounter that you are in. That's all I got for you for now. Whisper of the Worm is still the champion, with the Ikelos shotgun coming in for select strategies on certain encounters, and Sleeper still being a good substitute or option if you get bored of Whisper spam. If you enjoyed this video, a positive rating is appreciated. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.